Today's class we will learn how to make this beautiful cold shoulder sleeve with flounce. It's a very elegant sleeve and it's very simple to make. If this is what you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so to make this sleeve, I have my basic bodice here, the regular normal basic bodice with the basic sleeve sewn together. Remember, it's a cold shoulder sleeve, so I prefer to join my sleeve to the body before I create my cold shoulder effect. So now to do this, depending on how wide you want the cold shoulder to be, I have around 4 inches here. So from the tip of my neckline here, remember this is the neckline, I'm going to be measuring 2.5 inches outwards because I don't want it too inside. You can do 2 inches if you want, you can do 3 inches. So I'm measuring 2.5 inches inwards like this, and then on the armhole area here, I'm going to come down by just 3 inches. Okay, so if you do this now and you feel it's too small, you can go back to bring it back to the table and reshape it. But it's better for it to be smaller, for you to reshape it, than for it to be too big. So here I came out by 2 inches here. From here I went down by 3 inches, and then on the main sleeve, from where I joined it to the armhole, I'm going to go out by 3 inches also like this, and then I'm going to connect these 3 lines together like this. Okay, I hope you understand that. So after connecting the 3 lines together, I'll take my scissors now, and then I'm going to cut this shape out. So like I said, you can decide to take this to your mannequin now and wear it on the mannequin to see if you are okay with the open. But you can even see it from here. If you are okay with this level of sleeve that you have, you can leave it. But if you want it more open, you can trim it more. But like I said, it is better for it to be smaller than for it to be bigger, because if it's smaller, you can actually trim it off. But if it is too big, you may need to cut another sleeve entirely. So we have this now, and I think I'm okay with what I have. So now to cut the flare that will be attaching to this, I need to know my radius, and to know my radius I need the circumference, because this is where I'm actually attaching it to. So I'll take my tape rule now and take my measurements around this place. So after taking the measurements, I have 10 inches, and remember it is on fold because it's going to actually be 2. So that is going to be 10 plus 10 inches, and that is going to give me 20 inches. So if you're okay with 20 inches, you can do. But if you want to pleat or you want to make gathers with your flare, sorry, you can add maybe 5 inches to the 20 inches before you calculate your flare. So now I'm going to be adding around, I think I'm going to be adding to this. But let me first do 20 inches. So to get my radius, I'm going to use my circumference, which is 20 inches divided by 6.28, which I already have a tutorial on how to draft it. I'm dividing it by 6.28 because I'm using a full circle flare. So I already have a tutorial on how to draft different types of flare. If you are not clear with this, if you want to check that tutorial out. But if you're drafting a full circle flare, you need to divide the circumference. That's where you are placing the flare on. You need to divide by 6.28 to get your radius. The 6.28 is actually a constant. Okay, so I just want to show us what I was talking about. So you can see how open this is now. If you want it to go inside more, remember we measured 2.5 inches here. You can just do maybe 2 inches or 1.5 inches. And if you want it more opened here, you just need to increase your measurements. But what I have here is okay with me, so I'll be going for this. And you want the sleeve part to be lower. Instead of 3 inches, you can just go as low as maybe 4 or 5 inches, depending on what you want. Okay, so for the flesh, remember the circumference that I said I want to work with is formally 20 inches. The circumference is 20 inches, but I want to add half inch to it, so I'll make my circumference 25 inches. Okay, so now to get my radius, I'll be dividing this is 25 inches by 6.28, and that is giving me around 3.9, which I'm going to be approximating to 4 inches. So which means this 4 inches is my radius. That's how open the flare is going to be on the upper part. So for the length of the flare, remember this flare is like an high-low flare. So the high part, which is going to be the shortest, I want the high flare to be around 4.5 inches long, and the low, which will be the longest, I want it to be around 8 inches. Okay, so now to know the amount of flare that I need, how I'm going to be folding my fabric, I'll need to add this radius, this 4 inches, to both the high and the low part of the flare. So 4.5 plus 4 is going to give me 8.5 for the total that I need for my high, and for this I'll need a total of 12 for my low. That's 8 plus 4. So to know the amount that I'm going to fold totally, I'm going to be adding this 8.5 to 12, and that is going to give me 20.5. So now I'm going to be folding my fabric using this 20.5. Okay, so like I was saying, now to fold my fabric I need a fabric of 20.5 inches length. So now I'm going to take my tape rule now and measure 20.5 inches. Okay, which is here. So once I have my 20.5 inches, I'm going to fold this over like this. Remember, I'm cutting a flare. Okay, so I'm folding it over like this to have my flare, and once I fold it over, I'll have around 10.25. Okay, so now remember, to cut full flare you have to fold your fabric into 4. So after folding it into 2 like this, I'm still going to put it on fold into 4 using the same 10.25. Okay, so once I have that, now I will measure that round. I'll measure the 10.25 round, that's 10.25. I'm going to measure it round, then I'll cut it out so that we'll have smaller piece of fabric to work with. So I'm measuring that now, 10.25. I'm measuring it round, then I'm going to cut it out. Okay, so I've measured this round now and I've cut it out. So if I open up my flare like this now, I'm going to have the 20.5, that's 20.5 inches that I started with. I hope you can see it. I have my 20.5 inches back. So now to fold, remember that we've not cut our radius yet. To fold my high-low flare so that I can cut my radius, I'm going to be folding using the 8.5, which I need for my eye. So now from this total measurement that I have, I'll measure 8.5 inches, which is this is 8.5. Then I'm going to fold the fabric on the 8.5 inches point. So you will see that I have this longer than this, which is going to be my high, and this is going to be my low. So after folding it like this, I'll arrange it well. Then I'm going to, you can recheck it. Okay, if you measure it again, you will see that this is 8.5, which is the lowest part, and the longest part, which is 12 inches. If you measure it, you will see that this is giving you exactly 12 inches. So now I'm going to take my tape, I'm going to arrange this well, then I'll take my tape rule, then I can now measure out my radius. Okay, so the radius I'm working with is 4 inches. So on this apex point there, I'm going to measure in 4 inches round. I want to use a bolder chalk. I can't find my blue chalk. Just hope you can see this. So I'm measuring 4 inches round, and then I'm going to connect it. And then I'll cut it out. So after cutting it out, now you need to notch it so that, remember, the shortest part is the one on your shoulder. Okay, so this shortest part here, you need to notch this point so that when you're sewing it to your sleeve, you know that this part, this is the smallest part, is going to be on the shoulder. With this notch I can see that. So now I'm going to cut another one of this, which is going to serve as my lining. So I'll cut exactly this now before we continue. So I've cut 2 of this now. I have the lining and the main fabric cut exactly the same way, and also on the lining I'll be notching the low part. So you can notch both the high and the low part, but the low part is very important for me, so I'm notching it. So now that I have this, I'm going to be turning this flare with crinoline. So depending on how low this part is for you, if it's too low that a 2 inches crinoline, I'll be using this 2 inches crinoline, but this crinoline will still take it. But if it's too low that your 2 inches crinoline does not take it, you can use a 1 inch crinoline also. So I'll be turning it round by just sewing my crinoline round it. We've sewn crinoline severally on this channel before, so you may want to check it out. But basically what you just need to do is place this on it like this. That's wrong side facing right side. I'm still going to iron this first, and I think I'm still going to be ironing gum stay because this is a doll face fabric and it's quite soft. So I'll be ironing a gum stay on the lining part, just the lining. I'm not going to be ironing to the main fabric. So I'll iron the gum stay to the lining, and then I'll go ahead to sew my crinoline round it like this. So when you're sewing the crinoline, you don't need to drag it, you don't need to pull it, you just sew on it and let it follow its natural course like that. So I'm going to sew it round, I'm going to turn it and then iron it. So I'll bring it back to show us. Okay, so like I said, now I decided to add a gum stay to my lining, and I have it just on the lining. As you can see, I don't have it on the main fabric. Then I went ahead to sew my crinoline around it. So now I'm going to remove my pins, and you can notch this. Now remember, it's a circle, but don't cut your crinoline, just notch the seam allowance that you have there. Then you can top stitch it also, but I'm going to be using an heat transfer machine to iron this, so it will add enough pressure for me. But if you don't have that and you want it to be really flat, you can top stitch it, or you just press it with your iron and you make sure you had enough pressure to just make it flat. So now I'll take this to the sewing machine now. Then I'm going to, okay, so let me just tell us about this now. The reason why I don't really like to add interface to my doll face is because of this. You can see the one without interface. This doll face will still maintain its lusciness and it will be shining. But if you had a gum stay to it, I think it just makes it kind of, it gives it an effect that I don't really like. So that's why I prefer to just add it to my lining and not my main fabric. So now I'm going to be taking this to my ironing table now and then give it a good press. Then I'll bring it back to show us. So I've gone ahead to iron it, and like I said, I used an heat press. You can see how flat this is lying for me. So you should iron this as flat as possible. Just trim any excess that you may have. So the next thing now is for us to bring in our blouse so that we can attach this to the sleeve. Okay, and remember that I notched the low part from the beginning, the one that is the shortest, which is this. I still have my notches, so you should not lose that because you need to match it to your shoulder. So the low part is going to be on this part of the shoulder like this. So you can see it's going to be on the lower part of the shoulder, and like I did, you know, I had like 20 inches, but I added half inch to it, 5 inches to it, because I want to pleat it. So you can see that my radius is in excess now. So the excess that I have, I'm going to be pleating it. So you can see I'm going to be pleating it a bit round it so that I can give it more bulkiness. So now I remove this from the mannequin now and sew it to my sleeve. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this to my sewing machine now, and then I'm going to match this low part to this part. So the way I'm going to be sewing it, I'll sew it in a way that is not going to show. Okay, so I'm going to be sewing it like this. Remember, you cannot sew like this because you don't want your rough edges to show. So I'll be using it to turn each other so that by the time I sew it, it's going to rest on the rest of the bodice like this, and it's not going to be showing any rough edges. So now I'll take it to the machine now and sew it, and then I'll bring it back to show us. So the armhole area around now, and this is what we'll have. So like I said, if you want to add more place to it, I just added 5 inches extra to my circumference measurement. You can add as many as you can. So this is what the sleeve is looking like. This is the short part of the sleeve, and this is the long part, and you can see this is looking really beautiful. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed this, you can also top stitch it, but even without top stitching, the crinoline will make it stand on its own. You can see that it is standing. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.